As we move forward into 2024, are men and women coming out of college treated fairly, especially from individuals that are sports and student athletes? We talked to an expert on this transition on this episode of The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs, and if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
This episode is brought to you by LFS Chemistry. We are committed to being good stewards of the environment. We are providing the tools so you can be too. NAPE Expo, where deals happen. Air Compressor Solutions. When everything is on the line, Air Compressor Solutions is the dependable choice to keep commercial business powered up. Sandstone Group. Exec Crew. Elevate your network, elevate your knowledge. Texas Star Alliance. Pecos Country Operating. Fueling our future.
Well, hello again, and as always, thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Crude Truth. With me today, again, and as always, is my co-host, Christy. How are you?
Amazing, you?
Oh, man, I cannot complain. We're already halfway through the year. I can't believe that.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It's so true, isn't it? It is. And, ever since you've really started to come on board and be the co-host, we've really been able to dive into a lot more. And I just can't thank you enough for that. And with your knowledge and your background, especially as a life coach and as a female, we've really been able to highlight some strong females, especially since you've come on.
Yes.
Coincidence? I don't know. But but today, we had an opportunity to bring on another strong female, somebody that actually played Division I sports. They're actually hailing out in Nevada, if I'm correct, out of the West Coast area, Las Vegas. Our guest today is Stephanie Barrett. Stephanie, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you guys are doing, and I think there's going to be a lot of great conversation had today.
I agree.
I totally agree. Well, I cannot thank you enough. And, for everybody out there that's like, well, why did you bring on Stephanie Barrett today? It's like, well, I think I just highlighted strong women that are doing amazing things. Because, again, as I highlighted, it's 2024, for goodness sakes. And they keep telling us that women are just as equal, which they are, if not probably better. I mean, we don't give birth, right? So anyway, Stephanie, I cannot thank you enough. And really, just to get out there, the real reason why I invited you on is, there are nothing but strong women that are in the oil and gas industry. And with what your company is doing, I know that there's an excellent fit there for strong C-suite, executive level, high management women out in the oil and gas industry, from out in West Texas to the suits there in downtown Houston. So thank you so much for coming on. For those out there that don't know you, I just want to highlight you just real quick before I'll let you introduce yourself. You are Stephanie Barrett, the new Global Vice President at Aristocrat Gaming, and you were also named 40 Under 40 by the Global Gaming Business Magazine. So congratulations to all that. But the real reason why we had you come is not only do you do that during the day, but you moonlight as the CEO and founder of Her Competitive Advantage. Stephanie, hello, and welcome to The Crude Truth.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, first of all, if you can just give us a little bit about you, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so just recently, I got promoted at Aristocrat Gaming, the #1 slot manufacturer in the world, to the Global Vice President of Decision Support, Commercial Finance. So it's been such an amazing journey. I've just completed 5 years at Aristocrat, and it's been a really, really great experience. And amidst all of that, how HCA and Her Competitive Advantage really got started was, as my team started to expand and to grow, I had to hire more talent, obviously. And we have a 7,500 person organization, an amazing HR team. But waiting for people to apply for jobs today is kind of like watching paint dry. And then you wait your 30 days and you're not sure if you like any of the candidates. So I would start to kind of do my own sourcing, make my own phone calls on LinkedIn. And what I really realized was there's a lack of accessibility today in hiring diverse candidates. And so I really want to solve that. And when I really thought about the candidates that I truly wanted to hire deep down, because I was probably most familiar with them, were female athletes. And that's how HCA was born. It's a resume database for specifically current and former collegiate female athletes where companies and recruiters can go to find them.
Well, I just think that's awesome that you're able to do that because, again, I find it interesting that you're having a tough time finding these diverse athletes, especially at a time when you hear nothing on the radios and on the media about diversity. And here you are actually making a difference in real diversity, and you're giving it the crude truth, so to speak, that, hey, I'm actually truly making the difference here today. Let's talk about exactly what got you because you're a competitive athlete. So let's talk a little bit about your background of being a competitive athlete, Stephen.
Yeah, so I grew up playing sports. My grandfather was one of 10. He's 6'7", and he played college basketball at South Dakota State. My father played college football at the University of Washington, and so I just tried to follow in their footsteps, figured I had to play something in college, ended up with a full-ride scholarship to Arizona State University under the legendary Charlie Thorne. I was injured most of my freshman year and probably, to be totally transparent, had a lot of growing up to do as most freshmen do. But my injuries actually ended up ending my college career sooner than I would have liked. And I transferred to BYU to finish my schooling. And from there, I was actually a stay-at-home mom for a lot of years. My husband was a college coach on the women's side as well. So for 5 or 6 years, we were following his dream of, being a head Division I collegiate coach and eventually hopefully winning a national title or something like that. And amidst all of that, about 5 years in, my youngest, who was 4.5 months old at the time, became really, really sick. And we were living in a really rural area of Pennsylvania, 2 hours away from Children's Hospital. And we ended up at the ER January 19th. And I noticed he wasn't able to breathe. And when they read his oxygen, it was like in the low 80s. So we ended up at Children's Hospital for the first time by ambulance because life flight, there was too much fog and bad weather. And so we ended up at Children's Hospital. We were there for over 2 weeks in the first day. And within those 2 weeks, every test that you could think of, my son had. So from, simple MRIs, echoes of the heart, testing for cystic fibrosis, non-invasive things to a lung biopsy. And if you know anything about medicine, how quickly it happens and things get approved is kind of a sign of severity. And so, we spent so much time at the Ronald McDonald House. It was connected to the hospital. We actually stayed there for the greater part of the next 4 months while my son continued to have tests and we were being life flighted back and forth. Every day was kind of, is he going to live or die? And he's totally fine now. He's now 9. He was diagnosed with something only like 20 kids have ever been diagnosed with. And with that, in July, our research doctor was like, hey, everything's experimental. I really think you guys need to move somewhere dry and warm. I don't actually know how another cold and flu season is going to affect his breathing. And it could just extrapolate the problem. And so with that advice, we packed up our stuff. There's no college coaching jobs open in the middle of July, let alone anywhere that meets a dry and warm requirement. And so we had a deal with our moving company that over the next 30 days, we would let them know where we would end up. But we paid for the farthest spot on the West Coast. So we're driving across the country. I have a kid with an oxygen tank and 2 other young kids in the back seat. And I'm interviewing literally on the sides of freeways in those buildings that you would see. And ended up with a job. We ended up in Las Vegas and I've had an amazing career thus far. I think, your why becomes a little bit different when your child is literally almost dying every single day. Yeah. And so that's really driven me across my career. But I think I've been really fortunate to be surrounded by so many great mentors. That athlete side really comes out, right? Where I crave those coaches, I crave those teams, both below me, beside me, et cetera, and have really helped me so much along this journey.
Wow, that's a lot to take in and process, but you did it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole lot. I can't imagine just having to be with your firstborn in every single test going on.
Yeah, for 4 months. Wow. Empowering that they found it though, thank God.
Yeah, yeah. It was so we had two other young kids. So he was our youngest. We had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, almost two. It was like 3, almost 2, and then 4.5-month old. And so, we had no family out there. So people were flying in. We had parents on the team who would, we'd drop our other 2 kids off on the way to Children's Hospital because they live in Pittsburgh. We didn't talk much about it at the time. So no one outside of our family and, the team really knew anything because we didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I had shingles at 25 because
Sure.
I was literally so stressed. I mean, even to this day, if I watch any video footage of what happened or photos, I mean, I lose it because it's still, for whatever reason, so raw. I think the emotions of it all and how, unless you really were there living it, wondering every day whether or not you needed to go to the ER or drive straight to Children's or be life flighted or whatever, was pretty crazy. We'd literally drive to the ER and they'd see our son on oxygen, breathing as heavily as he was, and say, "How much do you guys weigh? A helicopter's on the way." And if weather was bad, it would be like, "Hey, we have an ambulance on the way." So it was an experience. Our family is so close.
How did it bring your
Your
family?
why and what's important really changes in those instances.
Well, you said something about your team, obviously your family. That says a lot about obviously you and your husband. So the team kind of stepped in and fill in for your family, which is powerful.
Yeah.
And you said that obviously it brought your family closer together when a lot of times those actually separate families. So that says kudos to you.
Yeah.
So true.
No, very true. I mean, I'm thankful. I can't imagine. Strong women. I mean, you guys are just amazing, and for what you were doing and what you've all been through. I want to, talk about the fact that you're talking about the team and how everybody stepped in and helped out. And I want to that's a tough one, but talk about her competitive advantage and how you talk about this team and how you've got now so many great student athletes that are looking for jobs because they, lack of better words, they understand their role as a team member. And so probably are some of the better employees to have, that it's like, hey, this is your role. This is your job. Yeah. Okay. We got to help out when so-and-so's not there. I mean, I would think that just being able to be on any type of a team, doesn't have to be specifically a sports team, but when you're doing those extracurriculars in college, they probably really help you prepare for the real world more than just focusing on your studies every day. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, you bring up such a great point, right? Sports is what I personally am most familiar with. And so that's why my focus is there right now. But really anything that you're doing outside of everybody else's requirements, that requires 20 to 30 plus athletes, I would argue is probably like 50 would include travel and tutoring, and all the things. So, and especially when you're in a fishbowl, the refinement that happens through athletics. And like I said, it could be music, being a professional musician, it could be sororities. My focus is athletes. That refinement that happens is invaluable, right? Like, for a female to understand the positive side of competition, where you can refine each other, where you can help each other, where you can give feedback to each other, where you can rely on each other, is really, really powerful. And I think something that a lot of people who haven't experienced that miss.
Yeah, they're lacking it. And I think women empowerment is so powerful. We're supposed to cheer each other on and uplift each other, whether it's from A to Z, and that really needs to be diverse and put out there so much now in the world.
It truly does. And if I may, here you ladies are talking about, you got to build each other up. And me being a guy, Caitlin Clark right now is getting literally bullied in the WNBA. To where you have people that have, on the NBA side, that have just always let the WNBA do their thing, or speaking out saying, ladies, leave this lady alone. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sports are so interesting. First and foremost, I personally am a Caitlin Clark fan. I'm a fan of the entire draft pick and the WNBA in general. Obviously, being here in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Aces being back-to-back champions is such a fun thing to be a part of.
That's right.
Sports is crazy. I think it's such an amazing thing that you can get on the court and go head to head, and come off the court and still shake hands and be friends and all that. I do think there's, a little bit more than we've seen in recent history. But what I'm really excited about with Caitlin Clark is as we see her career progress, she seems like such a great business person as well, or surrounded by people that help her in that space. And I'm excited to start talking about those kind of things and seeing the amazing, not just her, but Angel Reese, all of the other, GOATs that have been in the WNBA for many, many years, seeing all the things that they're going to end up doing, and setting an example for those future generations.
Focusing on the good instead of what's going on. Yeah, because there's so many talents, and then we focus on one negative, and then it skyrockets as what's going on now. So if we could just focus on the good of individuals, it would be amazing how the world would change.
I agree.
You're talking about focus on the good. I want to take a step back, and maybe I was bad kind of jumping into her competitive advantage after your story and the journey you've been on. But during that time that you were on that journey with your son and y'all are looking to transition to a better climate, that's when you and her competitive advantage really started. What made that happen during that time frame?
Yeah, so during that time when we moved out, her competitive advantage wasn't a thing. I've always had multiple jobs, whether it's photography or consulting or whatever. And so 8 years in, back in August, so this is just, a few months ago, when I really started to see the accessibility issue and realize that diversity and the issues of the lack thereof in corporate America, and business in general, has less to do with qualifications and more to do with accessibility. And when I threw a survey on my social media, and that's not even a cool thing to say, I don't have a lot of followers, but I also sent it out to, people my husband had coached, my old teammates, which, just to see what are they doing? Did they have a job when they graduated? Is this even a problem? And this survey was really invasive, right? Like, what do your parents do? Did you have a job when you graduated? What was your salary when you graduated? What's your current salary today? What's your current title? And within 24 hours, we had quite a few responses, and the results were astounding. So we found that 75% of collegiate female athletes today are graduating without a job. The national average right now is like 4%. So that is a huge problem. And then you compound that with Business Insider coming out with an article that says if you graduate underemployed or unemployed, you'll remain that for over 10 years and you may never find a college level job. Wow. So when I found that out, I was like, I cannot sit around and do nothing, right? Like when I realized that we're sitting on this gold mine of talent, Ernst & Young says 94% of C-suite females played competitive sports and over half at the collegiate level. Compounding that with my own experience and knowing that sports truly made me, like the core of who you are is defining so much of your childhood, and those experiences. And so when I realized so much of my success stems from the things that I've learned in athletics, whether that's reliance on team, whether that's being coachable, a myriad of other things, I was like, we're sitting on a gold mine of talent. And when I think about how do you fix gender inequity and pay parities, you start with the women who played with the boys their entire life. And then high tides rise all ships, right? So I think we have a real opportunity here to make a change. And I can't sit and listen to another panel of people saying, how are we going to fix gender inequities and pay parities with no action, right? Like, we're at a point where it's 2024 and we can't wait 137 years or whatever the global, forum says that it will take to reach gender equity. We got to start moving. And HCA is a step in that direction.
Holy cow. I mean, you talk about, and thank you for giving up or sharing that stat, and I wrote it down, that 94% of all C-suite females played some form of a sport. And again, that's why I wanted to highlight and ask you to come on, because the leadership is there, the talent is there. The oil and gas industry, I know we are getting more and more diverse, and we're bringing on much better talent. And that's why I wanted to highlight you and what you're doing. You also provided me with a really fun case study that was called No Revenge for the Nerds. So I know the oil and gas industry would love that, and I may even have to put that in somewhere in the beginning of whenever I promote this podcast episode. But I loved it because it really showed how, especially in the Ivy League schools, a lot of the sports athletes, male or female, not only were graduating with some of the better grades, but also some of the higher end pay scales, and also in a lot of economics and finance, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, that was a really interesting article. So some Ivy League universities got together, in essence, to answer the question, why do they have sports at an Ivy League university that is essentially an academic institution? So they studied all the power universities and Ivy League schools, meaning those universities that do not reduce the academic threshold for admittance, even for athletes. And what they found is in peak salaries, peak titles, cumulative titles, what they found was that in peak salaries, cumulative salaries, peak titles, and cumulative titles, athletes actually outperformed their non-athletes. And, an academic study is a lot more rigorous than my study, right? They're using government databases. They're having to bucketize individuals as far as majors, careers, etc. But what they found was super interesting is the first 5 years are pretty even. And then after that, you see it blow open, because it takes about 5 years, speaking about mental health and all of these components and tie-ins, it takes about 5 years for an athlete to figure out who they are again, right? Like, you've played your sport. It's been your identity for your entire life. It's everything you ever get those dopamine hits from, both from playing and the fundamentals of working out, but also through, congratulations, scoreboards, all of these things. And overnight, that's essentially gone. And athletes go into what I call the lost years. And the length of the lost years is 100% dependent on how quickly you find a new obsession. And part of that is the need to graduate with a job. But also understanding it's going to take some time to figure out why and who and what makes you tick and why you're such a great candidate, right? Because in the sports world, and even as you graduate, everyone around you has played sports. So everybody's intense. Everybody's all in. Everybody's competitive. And then you get to corporate America, and that's not always the case. And so figuring out, what your competitive advantage is in your work life, but also understanding that fire can either cook the food or burn the house down. So finding that balance, that when you're, interacting and communicating with someone who doesn't come from that same background, how is that being perceived? And that matters too.
How are you helping them transition to finding their identity? Are you helping them in that process?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost is the awareness factor. I meet with probably 10 current athletes a week, hearing their stories, and they're all the same. They all think they have this, amazing story, and they're alone in this. And that's really what our event in Portland, where Dave's Hot Chicken was our biggest sponsor, really was about, is that awareness factor and understanding that you're not alone. Every single athlete, male and female, by the way, go through this. And if you know that you're going to go to law school and be a lawyer, your lost years may be really short. You're still going to have to learn how to eat again when you're not burning 2,000 calories a day. But you may transition a lot smoother. And then there's the people who go into the lost years and don't know what they want to do. And so that awareness component is huge, right? And then secondarily is, because graduating with a job is so important, this resume database becomes the core of who we are, right? When you think about the lack of accessibility, it is extrapolated for athletes in a way that I don't think people have uncovered. But because now I've spoken with so many athletes in universities and I know what happens on the corporate America side, I see every problem clear as day. from simple things like geographical constraints. For instance, if I'm a local company here in Las Vegas recruiting at UNLV, that may not be the best place to hire a female athlete, because most of those athletes likely are not from Las Vegas, right? They could be from Florida, coming here just to play sports. And so creating a national reach when 80% of adults live within a 100-mile radius of their hometown because people want to be near family, we have to have that national geographic reach. But then there's so much unintended friction happening right now that I don't think people have understood how difficult it is to overcome without a program like HCA. So the resume database is absolutely free for universities. The only paid component, and athletes, by the way, the only paid component is the tracking. So what happens today, if I'm a corporation and I go to, let's call it UNLV, and I say, hey, I want to hire an athlete, give me your 2 best resumes. Because there's no tracking of who's majoring in what, who has a job and who doesn't, who's interested in what field and what and not, for them to actually be able to give 2 resumes to this company, they would have to set up 450 one-on-one meetings with these athletes. And so corporate America wants to move fast. They don't want to be waiting, hey, go take 3 months to figure out who I could hire. Career services, because they're individuals and can't quite search a database that says these are the majors, these are the people with jobs, etc. There's an inability to actually connect the two. So HCA essentially removes that friction point, but also gives the university an ability to search this database for their athletes so they can actually execute and maintain these relationships appropriately.
Wow. You've really done a lot here with HCA, which again is her competitive advantage. And I mean, your database right there is a gold mine in a sense with the knowledge and the individuals that you have in this and the thought process that you have taken on yourself and your team, of course, to really kind of get that nationwide. Because I liked how you talked about, it's like, hey, man, you know, the local people are always looking for, like the Las Vegas people are always looking for jobs, or Dallas, you know, SMU might be looking for, sorry, not SMU per se, but the city of Dallas might be looking, and half the people probably aren't from Dallas. So that is something else that you've really put into this and really thought about, and that friction really does help go away.
Yeah. No, it's going to be really great. We're just getting started. So we have over 10 universities committed to rolling out with HCA in the fall for their female athletes, which is amazing. And anyone who wants to learn more, you can go to www.joinher.com. That's our website. Test out the product, see what, contact me, see the offering, etc. But so we have 10 plus universities, including Syracuse, University of Oregon, BYU, Indiana University, Clemson. The list goes on and on. A lot of really great universities who are investing in this space to understand the importance of placing their female athletes. So really, really great momentum there. On the organization side, we're starting to have all sorts of conversations. So if you want to hire a female athlete, definitely reach out. I meet, like I said, with 10 plus of these athletes a week. And COVID year is a little bit weird right now. You've seen a lesser graduation because every athlete has been afforded an extra year if they'd like to take it. But every athlete that I've spoken with, and I've probably spoken with almost 1,000, but one I would absolutely hire. And what's the craziest thing is they are hidden gems, right? Like they're graduating, they are not quite sure what they want to do. They've spent all of this time putting all of their eggs in, their athletic basket, because female athletes are worried about the wins of today and not the losses of tomorrow. And when career fairs and all of those things are happening, a female athlete still has so many decisions to make. Do they want to go get a master's? Do they want to be a graduate assistant? Do they want to play a 5th year if available? Where do they even want to live? Like, there's so much to unpack that probably a career fair is not the best time for an athlete truly to make a decision. And they have their season to focus on, right? Also professional opportunities from an athletic perspective. Do they want to play overseas, et cetera? So it becomes even more important to have this accessibility that can happen so quickly for these companies to in fact connect with these athletes.
Damn.
I'm just like, yeah, that's a lie. You would never even know about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a hidden problem. And these athletes, I mean, literally, I have my notebook right here and I have so many athletes. I won't show you because there's all these other notes that are personal, but I have all these stars next to almost every athlete I've met with because I'm like higher than, like they're a sophomore. Where are they in 2 years? Like they are some of the most phenomenal people. And when you think about what's happening in corporate America, right, that AI is going to be taking away almost all transactional jobs. The soft skills learned through athletics are becoming even more important, right? And they're so hard to learn and change as adults, right? I mean, how many times have we said, that's just how I am, I can't change, right? Or, you know, the core of who we are is who we are, like it or leave it, whatever. But when you think about AI, and we're doing a lot in that space in my job with Aristocrat and all of that. Even with HCA, we have an AI component. You know, transactional jobs, AI is going to do the transactional jobs for us. Right. The value that people will bring to an organization are their strategic minds, which absolutely are learned through athletics, between scouting reports and understanding your competition and implementing a game plan and knowing whether or not it worked and revisiting. But also those soft skills of how to be a team player, being okay not hitting the game-winning shot because your teammate's more open, right? Like setting your teammate up for their perfect shot. I mean, the list goes on, and I really think that over the next few years, the impact that a female athlete will have on an organization will be absolutely exponential.
I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Very, very excited.
I'm very excited, and I like how you brought up AI because, you know, a lot of people think that AI is not going to replace the blue collar workers, but it's going to replace the white collar workers. And so when you have somebody like you just said, you know, I'm going to just, like I wrote it down, that actually has a strategic mind and is a real team player, somebody that, lack of better, is good in the office, that knows their role and helps out, and like we were just saying, sets other people up. Those kind of skills, those, dare I say, conversational skills and interpersonal skills, I think is the right word, are going to become even more important as technology only continues to get better.
Yeah, because you can't replace that with AI, no matter how much. Can't be replaced.
Yeah.
And I think the craving for human interaction will also increase, right? Like, and that genuine interaction. Because in sports, when you're on the field, on the court, you can't utilize AI, right? Like you can't phone AI and be like, what play should I make right in this moment? You have to be decisive. You have to rely on your team and you have to be all in. And those are things that I think, like I said, are just going to become even more valuable. I think we all say they're valuable today, but when we talk in 2 years, again, we're going to be like, wow, it is literally the most important thing for anyone in any role, running any organization, in any relationship, etc.
Man, you know, you've unpacked so much today, and I cannot thank you enough for doing this episode. We got to get her into the studio. You need I'll do a shameless plug for Real News real quick. We got to introduce her to Jeff Crilly because she could do a lot on look at you, your mind's already turning also, but we can discuss about that after the episode. But you know, Steph, if Stephanie, if you will, please give us the name and the website and how people, how companies, how management, hiring, HR people, how can they reach out to you and contact her competitive advantage?
Yeah, and thank you again so much for all you guys are doing, bringing light to these kind of situations, strong women in general. I think you're breaking down barriers of accessibility, and I think those kind of things are really, really important. So first of all, thank you so much for that. So again, my company is called Her Competitive Advantage. You can find out more information or contact me there through www.joinher.com. We're creating a movement. We're super excited. If you are interested in partnering with us, if you're interested in hiring top talent, having a place, as we all know, you can't utilize gender filters in the United States. So companies and recruiters who want more equitable candidates go where those demographics are guaranteed. And so HCA is a great place, right? We have I've already placed someone in biomedical engineering. I've placed someone in general business. We've got literally every major you can think of. We have people. So definitely reach out. It's going to be a really exciting journey over the next couple of years, and I can't wait to connect again.
Well, I cannot wait either. And I wanted to just ask a couple of random rapid fire questions because I'm pretty sure with everything you've got going on, and they're not hard ones. I promise.
Oh boy, here we go. No, you say hi. No, I'm just kidding.
Are you reading any good? Are you reading a good book right now? And if so, what?
Oh my gosh, I love reading. And you know what's so funny? Part of the reason I talk so fast is because I actually listen to everything on 2 times speed. TV shows, books, etc. It's a little bit different feel. I kind of have to get used to it because everything is very intense at 2 times speed. But my book that I'm reading right now that I just finished is Hidden Potential. And it is amazing. But I have a laundry list of really great books that I have loved over the years.
Okay. And then are you streaming any episodes or streaming any shows right now on any of those sites, like in the, Hulu's, Netflix's, or anything like that?
You know what's so embarrassing? I actually really don't watch any TV. I get 30 minutes or an hour while I'm working out in the morning. And it's usually just some mind-numbing something in the background, like The Voice or the Kardashians. They don't have to be like fully involved in to know what's happening. Some competition Survivor. This is so funny. So being competitive, I told my kids, I was like, hey, do you think I would do well on Survivor? Like, come on. This would be so fun. I've always wanted to do like The Amazing Race, but then, I got 3 kids. How are my husband and I going to go away? So I'm like, what about Survivor? And they're like, Mom, you're addicted to chocolate chips. That's like my vice. I don't drink or, anything like that. You're addicted to chocolate chips. And I don't know if you could survive 30 days without it. And I'm like, what? So we're still working on convincing my family that I could do something like that. But usually it's some competition show, cooking or mind-numbing thing. But it's really just on as background noise while I'm throwing some weights around or running on the treadmill.
And since you're in Las Vegas, do you have a favorite restaurant there in town?
You guys are like, man, she seemed really exciting when she was talking about all these businesses, but now she's really boring. We rarely eat out. I'm not going to lie.
Better that way.
Because we just love to cook and hang out as a family. And it's awesome. With all their sports schedules, life is almost a little too crazy to fit in like going and sitting down at a restaurant. So my favorite meal, which literally everybody who works with me, I'll tell you, is salmon with anything. Rice, salad, doesn't matter. Like if we're on a work trip, they're like, hey, Steph, what are you getting on the menu? There's 3 salmon options, right? Like they just know it's every day salmon. I love it.
Well, I love it. Well, again, for those out there, it's Her Competitive Advantage with Stephanie Barrett. And one more time, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so through our website, there's a contact form, www.joinher.com. Reach out there. My email is stephanie@joinher.com. So if you want to email me directly, you can do that as well.
Perfect.
And Christy, I cannot thank you enough as always. And great insight. I mean, again, you're here, you're a life coach, you're a keynote speaker. The things that you're doing is just amazing. So thank you as always for coming on. Stephanie, thank you. We need to get you in the studio. We need to find a reason to get you to Dallas and get you here one-on-one with our expert over here. And I cannot thank you enough. And to all our listeners out there, thank you. And we'll see you again on another episode of The Crude Truth.
Again, The Crude Truth would like to thank today's sponsors: LFS Chemistry, NAPE Expo, Air Compressor Solutions, Sandstone Group, Exec Crew, Texas Star Alliance, Pecos Country Operating, and Real News Communication Network.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.